Shivenu Adonai Elecha Vena Shuva Vena Shuva.
Page 50 in the Machzor. In the middle of the page.
Hades Yameinu Kekedem Hashivenu Hashivenu Adonai Elecha Vena Shuva Vena Shuva Hades Yameinu Kekedem Hashivenu Hashivenu Adonai Elecha Vena Shuva Vena Shuva
Thank you, Angie. Well, good evening. We made it to another year. Such a blessing. And it has been a long-standing Beth Evergreen tradition on Yom Kippur for representatives of the congregation, when they come up here to the bema, to offer an apology and request forgiveness from the congregation for any offenses from the past year. I have mixed feelings about this practice. On the one hand, it makes good sense. We are taught that Yom Kippur can atone for transgressions between me and God, but not ones between me and you. If I have offended you, I don't get to avoid talking to you about it and go to God for forgiveness. I have to go directly to you. And so before we turn our prayers to God, to the wind, to the rock, we turn to one another. And this is good and right. On the other hand, blanket apologies and forgiveness requests, well, they aren't the most comforting and satisfying kind of blanket. In a few moments, I'll invite you to rise with me and recite one of those blanket apologies. But first, I'd like you to join me in putting some squares on that quilt, some specific reflections and regrets that we might have, maybe to someone else in this room, maybe to ourselves, maybe to the congregation at large. Reflection, honesty, and forgiveness. That's what today is about. And if there's anything about how I have conducted myself with regard to this congregation, to you personally or as your rabbi, that has negatively affected you or the congregation or my service to this congregation, I'm sorry. And I ask you to forgive me. So, you might have your own that you want to whisper, or maybe to the person next to you, say outright. So here's hoping that this moment helps a blanket apology we are about to offer on the slide, I hope, or a full version on page 773. May it bring just a little bit more comfort and warmth and meaning, as all blankets should. If you would rise with me. Together. Ribon ha'olam. As I stand here, I now forgive all who have angered or wronged me, whether knowingly or unknowingly, by word or deed. Let no one be punished on my account. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, so may it be that I be released from habits that have caused harm to myself, others, or the earth. In your great mercy, free me and others from the negative consequences of my words and actions without causing further harm. May the words of my mouth and the yearnings of my heart be acceptable to you, freeing wind, gracious rock. While we're standing, I'm going to invite candle lighters. Sarah? So Sarah, who's lost her father recently, is going to light our Yizkor candle, and the candles for Yom HaKippurim. You can be seated. You'll be standing plenty. And the blessing is on page 687. Both of them, all of them. Ishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Yom HaKippurim. We did it. Let's light it up. And speaking of lighting, tonight is the only night of the year where it's customary to wear a talit in the evening, on a day where there is a blurring and a blending of night and day. So if you'd like a talit tonight, there's some on the back and some up here. Feel free to grab one, and the blessing is on the following page. Let's try to release ourselves from the weight, the bondage of promises unfulfilled from the past year, and invite Justin and John to come forward to open the ark as we prepare to recite the Kol Nidre. Page 692. Bishiva shel ma'ala, u'bishiva shel ma'ala, al dat hamakom, please rise. Ve'al dat hakahal, anu matilin litpalel, im havayanim. And the slide will offer a translation of the prayer for Kol Nidre before we chant. Together. All the vows on our lips, the burdens in our hearts, the pent-up regrets, the opportunities lost, we bring before you now on this Yom Kippur. Will you hear our regret? Will you release us from the shackles of habit? Forgive our wrongdoings. Look past our forgetfulness. Forgive us. Pardon us. Page 694.
Kol Nidre Vesare Ushevue Vacharmei Vekinome Vekinuse Vekinue Din Dar Darla Udishtabana Udacharina Udasarna Nafshatana Miyom Kippurim Shevar Hari Yom Kippurim Ze Aleinu Litova Kulon Icharat Naveho Kuhon Yehon Shara Shevikin Shevitin Beteli Umuvutalim Lashirin Vlakayami Nidrana La Nidre Vesarna La Esare Ushuata
V'nislach lechol adat b'nei Yisrael v'lager hagar betocham ki lechol ha'am biskaga slach na la'avon ha'am hazeh kegodel chasdecha וכאשר נסעת לעם הזה ממצרים ועד הנה ושם נאמר ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדבריך ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדבריך ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדבריך. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. You may be seated. A psalm translation, Psalm 32. The Maskil, the guide, says, what joy it is to have pulled back the weighted blanket of regret from last year's offenses and missteps, having been gifted forgiveness. Yes, what a joy to step into being fully human, ignoring the voices that insist sin is inherent, relieving the Ruach soul of delusions of perfection. Joy. And the seeker. But is anyone really listening? It's as if my soul phone has been silenced and my mic muted on Zoom. The static is deafening and constant. I can't. All day, night, this so-called glorious conscience weighs so heavily upon me. The miracle of an open hand is so readily clenched into a fist, beating my breast as it shrivels and sags, parched like the grasses of late summer. I keep making the same mistakes. I admit it. I've tried not to hide my offenses, but they still weigh on me. I confessed, you accepted, still, I messed up. Selah. The Maskil guide responds, I suppose that's why we practice tefillah, whenever we can find or make the time, turning the discerning eye inward, striving for honest self-assessment, resetting our intentions to be a chassid, a devotee of love, or perhaps simply to give voice to our thirst and pray that we don't drown when the waters rise too high. The seeker, you're a mystery to me. Please just unchain me from this Promethean rock. Free me to rekindle song again. Or just hug me, I don't know. Selah. And the Maskil guide concludes, I can only teach you what you already know. You must continue on this path, exercising the discerning eye of conscience. Don't be a horse's ass. That's a direct translation. Remember that bit and bridle are not there merely to torment with constraint, nor adorn with artistry. Rather, they, like your capacity to feel remorse, are tools intended to help you harness your power, to sow seeds of empathetic love upon the earth and share their fruits. You're getting closer. Trust me. Far greater are the torments of those that refuse to do self-examination. Trust conscientiousness. Receive the freeing release of forgiveness and extend the joyous embrace of loving connection.
Remember to plug in. This is the sound of one voice, one spirit, one voice. The sound of one who makes a choice. Oh, this is the sound of one voice. Oh, this is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of voices too. The sound of me singing with you, helping each other to make it through. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices three, singing together in harmony, surrendering to mystery. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of voices three.
Please rise and lend your voice.
This is the sound of all of us, singing together in the will to trust, leaving the rest behind and we'll turn to us. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of all of us. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Together.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. This is the sound of one voice, one people, one voice, a song for every one of us.
This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. You may be seated. Light, 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 night, night, light, light, night. Baruch Kol Eloi, Lipnei Choshech, V'Choshech. Mi pnei or, Baruch Kol Eloi, mi pnei choshech, v'choshech, mi pnei or. As shadows lengthen, let us take strength in, light being what it is. Where day and night mix, that's when the dusk lives. Greeting evening with a kiss. As shadows lengthen, let us take strength in, light being what it is. Where day and night mix, that's when the dusk lives. Greeting evening with a kiss. Light, light, night, night, light, light, night, night, light, light, night. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love.
We are embraced by arms that find us, even when we are hidden from ourselves.
Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael.
We are touched by fingers that soothe
Torah
us,
u'mitzvot.
even when we are
Chukim
too
u'mishpatim
proud for
otanu lemadata.
soothing. We are counseled by voices that guide us, even when we are too embittered to hear. We are loved. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are supported by hands that uplift us, even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us, even when we are too weak for meeting. We are loved. We are loved, loved, loved
Ve'avatecha lo tasur mimenu leolamim. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Page 714. Listen, Israel, listen. Still the mind's chatter, quiet the heart's desire. The rush of life flows through me. The heart of eternity beats in my own chest. Listen. I am the fingers of the divine and infinite hand. I am the thoughts of a divine and infinite mind. There is only one reality, a singular source and substance of all diversity, and this one alone is God. Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
Love your God with all your heart, with all your strength, with all your soul.
Love your God with all your heart, with all your might, with all your soul. Where you live, where you lie, where you stumble, where you cry, with all you speak, with all you know, with all your soul. Be like God, one like God. Love your might with all your soul. When you see, when you soar, when you breathe and breathe no more, love your God, be with God, go with God. Love your God with all your heart, with all your strength, with all your soul. Love your God with all your heart. With God, go with God.
We've been talking since the onset of the new moon, since Rosh Hashanah, about freedom and prayer and tzedakah and teshuvah, all being about freeing us and freeing us to love. And the song of freedom that we sing is a remembrance of reenacting having crossed the sea and tasted that freedom for the first time. Mi chamocha. You can find it on page 728.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai.
Mi kamocha neda b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef elem. V'ne'emar ki fad Adonai et Yaakov, u'gelo miyad chazak mimenu, baruch atah Adonai, ka'al Yisrael.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. Hamidenu Malkeinu l'chaim.
Ufros aleinu, spread over us.
Ufros aleinu sukkah shlomecha. Ufros aleinu sukkah shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we read with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right.
Ki vayom hazeh, on this day, atonement shall be made for you. I'm on page 734 and 733. A cleansing. Before the fount of mercy, you shall be clean. We rise for the Amidah, standing, silent, reflection, opportunity for individual, vidui, confessional. And we'll start together. The blessings can be found on page 739 and 740, or with transliteration, you can find those on page 388.
Adonai sevatai tifta ufi agid tehilatecha. Adonai sevatai tifta Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah.
Amen. Continue independently and silently, and you can be seated at your discretion. יום הכיפורים הזה למחילה, לסליחה, לכפרה, ולמחול בו את כל עוונותינו. כל נושא
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ויאמרו אמן. הוא עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ויאמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל יושבי תבל.
Amen. I'd like to invite Andra Slavsky to come forward. You can join her on page 818.
Today, we stand before the mirror of all to see ourselves as we are. We come with no gifts, no bribes, no illusions, no excuses. We stand without defense and wait to be filled. What will fill us? Remorse, certainly. So much error and needless pain. And joy, remembered moments of love and right doing. We are too complex for single-sided emotions, and we are too simple to be excused by our complexity. Let us be bold enough to see, humble enough to feel, daring enough to turn, and embrace the way of justice, mercy, and simplicity.
Turning back to page 781. We read responsively. Slichot. May our prayers rise at evening hour, and may our cry come forth from the dawn, and may our song be pleasing through the day. Together.
May our voices rise at evening hour, and may our merit come forth from the dawn, and may our prayer redeem us through the day.
May our searching rise at this evening hour, and may our plea for pardon come at dawn, and may our sigh reach you through the day.
May refuge rise at evening hour, and may it come for your sake with the dawn, and may atonement reach us through the day.
May salvation rise at evening hour, and may our cleansing come forth with the dawn, and may we plead for grace throughout the day. May our urgent prayer rise at evening hour, and may rejoicing come forth with the dawn, and may our plea be heard throughout the day.
May our weeping rise at evening hour, and may it come forth to you with the dawn, and may it find your favor through the day.
We long for transformation as we cast our voices upward on the wings of the day. Words pile on words, creating a ladder ascending to the heart of prayer. Page 820, we rise for the communal vidui confessional. An alphabet soup of sins to cook up just for God. Sorry? Asham. Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai. Ashamnu. Bagadanu, Gazalnu, Dibanu Dofi, Hevinu, Vehirshanu, Zadnu, Hamasnu, Tafalnu Shaker, Yai Kizavnu, Latsnu, Maradnu, Niatsnu, Saranu, Avinu, Pashanu, Tsaranu, Kishinu Oref, Yai Bye Bye.
Ti avenu, tainu, ditanu,
Page 827, 828. We do a combination of Hebrew and English. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, in the closing of the heart, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha, without knowing what we do. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, whether open or concealed, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha, knowingly and by deceit. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, through the prompting of the heart, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha, through the influence of others. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, whether by intention or mistake, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha, by the hand of violence. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, through our foolishness of speech, ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha, through an evil inclination. Next page. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, in the palming of a bribe. Ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha, by expressions of contempt. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, through misuse of food and drink. Ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha, by our avarice and our greed. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, through offensive gaze. Ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha, through a condescending glance. Ve'al kulam Eloha selichot selach lanu mechalanu kabelanu. 831, 832. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, by our quickness to oppose. Ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha, by deception of a friend. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, by unwillingness to change. Ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha, by our running to embrace an evil act. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, b'sinat chinam. Ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha, in the giving of false pledge. Ve'al kulam Eloha selichot selach lanu mechalanu kabelanu. Ve'al kulam Eloha If you're able, continue to stand. Avinu Malkeinu, page 454.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu v'Aneinu, Ki ein banu masim. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, ve'oshienu. Hey, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu v'Aneinu, Ki ein banu masim.
Our source, our sovereign, we pray for healing for all those in need of healing. Take in the extent of the brokenness in our world, broken hearts. And we call to mind those for whom we'd like to pray specifically for healing of body and healing of spirit. Misha Berach Avotenu Abraham, Yitzhak, V'Yaakov, V'imotenu Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, V'Leah. May the Holy One who blessed our ancestors grant blessing and healing to Richard Berg, Bruce Daniels, Ellie Verhey, Karen Bennett, Hannah Holstein, Maddie Epstein, Rabbi Steve Butnadav, Michael Bedwell, Susan Jane Kerr, Mary Fitzgerald, James Block, Annie Hiddle, Robbie Glantz, Herb Schwartz, Stacy Magia, Sally Korf, Don Greenberg, Lori Feldstein, Ron Kleban, Tammy Kleban, Kathy Kaiser, Nate Feinberg, David Dash, Howard Weinberg, Robin Chalker, Mike Schneider, and Sandy, Nancy Friedman, Marty Diesenhoff, Steve Bernstein, Susan Levin, Lawrence Fox, Ron Salzman, Yehuda Benjamin. Folks on Zoom, you're welcome to include names on the Zoom chat. Caitlin Trussell, Nathan Gans, Richie Dash, Ron Moore, Marilyn Moore, Kenneth Rosenblum, Marge Korn. We pray for them a full healing of body and spirit, and may loved ones, caregivers be granted strength and hope, persistence, perseverance, and support themselves. And let us say, Amen. Alexis and Jackie as well. Wow, we filled the place. Thank you. Thank you for being here, for continuing to invest your time and talent and treasure in this 49-year-old experiment to offer a center for Jewish life in the foothills, to offer a bridge connecting us to a 3,000-year-old Jewish experiment, which links us to a remarkable human experiment that goes, 5,784 years now, or perhaps it's 5.7 million years. It's a noble experiment, and thank you for doing that with us as Congregation Beth Evergreen, as CBE. Notice I said as CBE and not at CBE. Exactly. Because we are CBE, not this beautiful building, but the beautiful people, and the longing and the learning and the loving that lights up this place. And also the doubting and the unlearning and the baking meals for those in need and weaving new connections and grieving and crying, the watering of the soil that makes space for new life. You and me, and what we do here and out there, the fire and the clouds, the candlelight and the challah, the spirit and the wind, the ruach of voices, lifting words into meaning with music. That's us. That's CBE. And tonight we gather to form a more perfect union of imperfect souls, to atone, to free ourselves from the bondage of ignorance and conceit, of despair and fear, and to bridge all that divides us with the shared quest for freedom. And yet, have you noticed that conversations about freedom have a tendency to go off the rails? Why is that? A few years before the pandemic, BC, before COVID, I was invited to return to the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College, RRC, this time as a teacher. And I was asked to lead a 3-day mini course on Jewish ethics, or Musar, and how a contemporary approach to this soul-growing discipline might enhance Jewish life in a congregational setting. And as the first session was about to begin, one of the students, a young first-year rabbinical student, approached me, and I introduced myself, and he said he already knew me. I was surprised, but apparently, he says, I was his 5th grade Hebrew school teacher back when I was a rabbinical student. So at the next break, I approached him, his name's Alex, to learn what he remembered about his time in my class. Without hesitation, he recalled the lesson I had taught about the Levitical passage that prohibits a man lying with a man as one lies with a woman. It's the verse, as you probably know, referenced by those seeking to condemn homosexuality. I remembered the lesson and how I encouraged the students to challenge the usual interpretation, hoping to protect that group of 20-plus 10-year-olds from some measure of the curse of homophobia. When he began his next sentence as a gay man, I was certain a compliment was coming. And that is not what happened. He wanted an apology. I was caught off guard. I noticed all the usual reactive, defensive emotions arising in me. I felt threatened and embarrassed and misunderstood and angry and confused. I went with confused. And I asked him to explain. He remembered my interpretation of the verse, which I took as a compliment. But what he had really wanted from me, from his teacher, was to be angry that the verse was there in the first place. It took me a while to let that sink in, to receive his rebuke, to appreciate his candor, and to apologize. Alex and I both wanted to further the cause of freedom. In this case, the freedom of sexual identity and expression. Still, despite our best intentions, there was a divide between us that needed to be bridged. My hope is that the bridge that emerged in that exchange might be applied more broadly. I'm thinking about some of the hot-button issues in this country: reproductive freedom, religious freedom, freedom of speech. Freedom, there it is again and again, uniting and dividing us. So what's the deal? Given that the rituals of this day revolve around words and the power we invest in them as our primary means of atonement, let's address the question of free speech, though not from a legal point of view, but a moral one. From a moral and a spiritual or religious point of view, free speech is only partly about the legal right to speak freely. It's also about the discipline to use speech in a way that furthers the cause of freedom and remembers the purpose of freedom, which I may not have mentioned yet. Stay tuned. So let's start from the beginning. In Breshit, which is redundant, Bereshit, the story of creation, a portion of which we read last week on Rosh Hashanah for the first time at Beth Evergreen. God, as Ruach, as divine wind hovering over the face of the deep, creates the world, including humanity, through speech. But why? Light and dark, waters and skies, dry land and life, vegetation, bugs, beasts, and the wind calls it good. And then humankind, earthlings, which the wind calls very good. And then wind gets worried and declares something's not good. It's not good for Adam, the human, to be alone. That's interesting. The sages wonder aloud, how would God know that? That isolation is not good. Perhaps this wind god who smelt it, felt it. The not good of isolation, the longing for loving connection, the longing to give and receive love. Could God have felt that first? Must have, to be able to notice it in Adam. And could that be the reason for creation itself? If so, where does freedom come in? The thing about love is that it cannot be compelled. It must be freely chosen. There's no love without freedom, without free will. So now we can turn back to free speech. Permission to speak Hebraically. If we're going to discuss free speech from a Jewish point of view, we'll need to add a few Hebrew words to our lexicon. And the first is a mouthful. It's called tochecha. Try it. Tochecha. Good. Careful. Wipe the spittle off your neighbor. Tochecha refers to our ability to freely give and receive love through candid critique or loving rebuke. Tochecha. The other word we've used already, slicha. It names our capacity to seek and offer forgiveness. Ve'al kulam, Eloha selichot, God in a feminine form of forgiveness. Silach lanu. we say in Hebrew, in modern Hebrew, maybe the folks joining me in the Hebrew Israel trip will hear a lot, slachli, forgive me, pardon me. Or as my son Tal put it when he was a toddler after burping at the dinner table, part of me. Still love that. So tochecha and slicha. Together, these two practices constitute a two-lane bridge that I hope we can cross or sail under together tonight. Mostly, we'll talk about tochecha. The expression comes from the holiness code in Leviticus that follows the elaborate ritual for Yom Kippur that we'll read tomorrow morning. Hocheach tochiach et amitecha velo tisa alav chet. You shall surely rebuke your kinsman, your neighbor, lest you put sin upon him. Rebuke, critique. Hocheach tochiach, a double verb form. Surely rebuke. And this act in a noun form, that's what tochecha is. And we remind our kids, and they remind us, to say please and thank you. That's a tochecha. When the courts issue an indictment, or the grand juries, that's a tochecha. When a congregant says to the rabbi, I couldn't hear you, speak louder, that's a tochecha. Now, if we combine the mitzvah of tochecha with the principle of free speech, one might assume that we should go around calling people out left and right for their missteps or their bad couture. However, in this context, the question is not whether I have the right to speak up, but whether or not what I have to say furthers the cause of freedom and the purpose of freedom, which is love. To qualify as free speech in this moral sense, our speech must not simply be free from limits or constraints. It must serve the cause and the purpose of freedom. When Potiphar's wife falsely accuses Joseph of molesting her, that expression of free speech landed Joseph unjustly in prison. Her speech may have saved her from self-imposed embarrassment, but it did not serve the cause of freedom or love. In the rabbis' extensive discussions about tochecha, the sages urge us to look closely at the verse in context in order to discern how and why we offer tochecha. Here's the context. Bear with me. 5 verses. Permission to translate them into English? Okay. Verse 1. You shall not curse the deaf or place a stumbling block before the blind. Be fair and just when making judgments. Verse 2. Do not go around spreading rumors or gossip among your people. Verse 3. Do not be a bystander when someone is being insulted. Aldam reacha. And then the verse at hand, which has 3 parts. Do not hate another in your heart. You shall surely rebuke thy neighbor or risk placing sin upon him. And the 5th, you shall not seek retribution or bear a grudge against the children of your people, but rather love thy neighbor as thyself. Whew. We could spend all night unpacking these verses and the guidance they have to offer us about how to do tochecha and do it well in a way that furthers the cause of freedom for the sake of love. Tochecha be'ahava. But I promised myself I would try to speak about wind without being long-winded. So I'll try to stick to 5 main points and use these 5 verses to illustrate the first facets of freedom. Permission to speak freely?
Granted.
Thank you. First, the fire, the light. A healthy society, democratic society, depends on a free press. And a vibrant, holy community thrives on candor. To be our best selves, we need partners and friends willing to shine a light on our shadows. Talmud Brachot, a prisoner cannot free himself from prison. We need help to become aware of our blind spots. We need mechanisms for feedback that are honest and kind. When we are not candid with friends, partners, coworkers, when we do not alert those we care about to the ways they may be causing harm or offense, are we not placing a stumbling block before the blind? Sometimes, like Alex, we need to have the courage when we have been impacted by another's behavior to let them know, as an act of love, helping to illuminate the stumbling blocks on the path. We also need to try our best to encourage others to be candid with us, to open our ears and our hearts. Do not curse the deaf and be fair in judgment. I fear we are entering a pandemic of hearing loss. Too often, especially in the internet echo chamber, we hear what we want or expect to hear. The algorithms reinforce this. And in time, we become deaf to data and perspectives that are dissonant. These days, we have to actively seek out perspectives that challenge our own and resist the temptation to regard differences of opinion as an insult, which make it only easier to dismiss. Otherwise, we may be sentencing ourselves to the prison of our own deafening echo chamber. In order to be fair and just when making judgments, we must first seek help and become more aware of our blindness and our deafness, our unconscious biases. The fire, the light, the call to say tochecha. The second, the cloud. If we are going to kindle the light with tochecha, we must be careful not to obscure things by blowing smoke. In order to offer loving tochecha, we must get better at distinguishing between direct experience and hearsay, between facts, opinions, and feelings. The verse I'm referring to is, do not go around spreading rumors or gossip among your people. In Jewish ethics, we're cautioned about the dangers of speaking about someone who isn't right there, present. Gossip in Hebrew is called the shon hara, literally evil speech. I prefer selfish speech because it rarely serves anyone except the one who is speaking it and spreading it. It is not likely to serve the cause of freedom, and what's more, it has a nasty tendency to spread, and spread fast, like wildfire flames and toxic clouds. There is no place for gossip and hearsay in loving rebuke. With tochecha, there are no intermediaries. If we hope to increase the light rather than cast cloudy shadows, we must speak honestly and directly. And we have to differentiate and acknowledge when we're reporting facts and when we're opining. To effectively shine a light on another's blind spot in ways that they can hear, not curse the deaf, we'll need to get better at naming the differences between what we feel in here and what we witness out there. Alex might have said, "You're disrespectful and mean, a homophobe." Such words are likely and would have likely fallen on deaf ears. Here's another option. Jamie, when you taught the verse from Leviticus and didn't voice any anger about it, my takeaway was that you were okay with the Bible's seeming condemnation of homosexuality. As a result, I felt silenced, unseen, and hurt as a young gay man. when you spoke about X, fact, I heard it as Y, opinion. And as a result, I felt Z. This formula for tochecha is so much easier to hear because it differentiates the fact from the opinion, from the feeling. Sounds simple, no? Imagine the clouds we could clear with such a practice. Imagine the clouds that would clear in the political world with such a practice. Before moving on to the third verse and facet of free speech, another word about the cloud. The cloud and the warning about the dangers of gossip is a reminder that we only ever know part of the story, especially someone else's story. The cloud is a reminder to tread lightly with what we think we know, to walk humbly with our godlike capacity to speak worlds into being. Third, the water, the life force, in this case, the blood. Do not stand idly by the blood of thy neighbor. Blood of thy neighbor? The sages do a remarkable thing with this verse. For starters, they refute the adage, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names can never hurt. And they understand that words have power, sometimes more power than weapons. That words can kill, that cyberbullying words and images posted on the web can kill. The phrase they use is halbanat panim, the whitening of the face. Causing someone to blush or inversely to blanch is likened by the sages to an act of murder. It's bloodshed beneath the skin. In the previous verse, we are cautioned against gossip and learn that tochecha must be offered directly, face to face. Here in this verse, even if I am not voicing the gossip or insult, simply by listening to it without intervening and objecting, I incur guilt. What does that mean? On the one hand, it means that we should speak up and object when we hear, obviously, someone using a racial slur or making a sexist comment or disparaging a coworker or neighbor. And in the wake of the preceding verse, it may be setting an even higher bar, suggesting that collectively we should have a very low tolerance for gossip, for speaking about someone, anyone who isn't physically present. At the very least, we should be cautious, lest we condone a form of moral and spiritual bloodshed when the conversation turns to someone who is not there. If I want to talk about you, you have a right to be there and speak for yourself. Loving, free speech, kind candor is done face to face, not through back channels. And if possible and safe, it should be done privately in a one-on-one conversation so as not to cause unnecessary embarrassment, a whitening of the face. Alex addressed me directly, pulled me aside for a private conversation, and I heard him. Fourth, the wind, the ruach. This is the verse that commands us to do tochecha, to surely rebuke thy kinsman. But let me read the whole verse again. Do not hate your fellow in your heart. You shall surely rebuke thy neighbor and not place sin upon him. Do not hate your neighbor in your heart comes first, before the rebuke part. To me, this suggests that we need to check our motives before offering rebuke and critique. Am I doing it to lift the person up and help them out, or put them down and lift me up? Who is the primary beneficiary of my rebuke? What are my real motives for voicing the critique? If I'm motivated by my own fear or anger or hatred of my neighbor, what am I really angry about? And if I'm not willing or able to examine, clarify my motives, then I probably shouldn't be offering tochecha. If I am compelled to speak up because of motives of which I am unaware, unconscious biases, then I'm not really free. And it's not free speech, and my words are more likely to spread like wildfires of fear and hatred than to share and shed the light of love. Which brings me to the fifth and final verse. The fifth facet of free speech, love, and leaving a lasting legacy of love. The verse reads again, don't seek retribution or bear a grudge against the descendants of the people. Love your fellow human being as yourself. Words have power. The impact can endure for generations. Free speech from a moral perspective has to look at the long-term impacts of our words. Imagine the legacy of doing tochecha well. In the Ten Commandments, we learn that the sins of parents endure for 3 to 4 generations. And acts of chesed, of loving kindness, those endure for 1,000 years. Don't seek retribution. Don't bear grudges. Love on others with kind candor and forgiveness, lest the legacy we pass to the next generation shackle them with these painful legacies. I don't know what grudges you're holding on to, but you do. And you know that whether you are the offender or the offended, the silence is probably not serving anyone. It's certainly not freeing. And freedom is possible through especially these 2 forms of speech, kind, candor, and forgiveness, tochecha and slicha. The tochecha thing is so hard to do well. Giving and receiving love with candor and kindness, loving rebuke. But the rewards will surely be worth the effort. And this year, let us help each other practice candor, offering tochecha as an act of love, using our breath, our words, our spirit wind, and letting it light the way. Clear clouds of debris by distinguishing hearsay from direct observation, fact from opinion, from feelings. That way we can water the seeds of new life by weeding out unnecessary gossip and slander, and we can be mindful of our motives before we offer tochecha. Let us practice receiving candid critique as an act of love, and for the sake of freedom and love, practice it and forgiveness. All 5 facets of freedom will surely offer us a bridge between one another and to many generations to come. Shana Tova.
Kohala, kulo, gesher tsar meod. Kohala, gesher tsar. Kohala, kulo, gesher tsar meod. Kohala, gesher tsar. Kohala, kulo. Gesher tsar meod, kol ha'olam. Gesher tsar, kol ha'olam kulo. Gesher tsar meod, kol ha'olam. Gesher. Hai God,
walk along this very narrow bridge, I will not be afraid, knowing you are with me. As I walk along this very narrow bridge, I will not fear, knowing you are near. The high God, the high God, glorify Him, glorify Him. The high God, the high God, glorify Him, glorify Him.
I'd like to invite Justin Hovey, your co-president, to come forward and share a few words.
Hello, everyone. I am Justin Hovey. I am the new co-president of the board. And as a lot of you know, on Kol Nidre, we do our financial appeal for the upcoming year. And one of the things that I've been doing is asking you all when I've been coming up to the BEMA over the last couple of weeks is to think of legacy. What does that mean? And for this year's financial appeal, we had a lot of ideas sort of floating out in the air. At one point in time, we thought we would need about $20,000 to replace the doors here. But our intrepid director of operations, Sarah Hess, got another bid from somebody else, and that was all taken care of for about $80. So we don't really need, I think we need to do a little bit bigger than that. And so thinking about legacy, what that means, and the future of CB, especially going into our Jubilee year here, the thing that we decided on as a board is to really focus on our endowment, our legacy fund, which is operated by the Rose Foundation. And for those of you who don't really know what that is, it's an endowment fund that is typically bolstered by contributions from individuals' wills, transfer of assets, appreciated stock, so on and so forth. The principal stays there. About 5% of our operating budget every year comes from that fund. And from that, right now we have about $430,000 in that fund, which sounds like a big deal. You know, it is. It's a pretty good amount of money, but we need to grow that. And over the life of the fund that we've been using, we've had about $300,000 in disbursements so far. And really to consider that, you know, what would that mean? What sort of, you know, as Jamie was talking about, what sort of freedom would that give us if we could increase that fund substantially? And maybe up that to 10% of our operating fund every year, 15%, 20%. And that's the sort of thing we'd like the money to go to now, going into our Jubilee year, is that will be able to carry us through these next 49 years. And there's a couple of people I'd like to stand up right now. Dan Herman and Alan Rubin, I believe I saw both of you sort of around here somewhere. As you know, both of these individuals are very shy folks, so you might not know them very well. But these are the individuals who are the contacts for the Legacy Fund. They will have much more information about this than I do. I have sort of a base understanding of it. They know a heck of a lot more. They would be very glad to talk to you if that's something that you're interested in. And the other thing that I would really like to share with you is, you know, aside from the business aspects of that, you know, really what does that legacy mean? What does this bring to us? And I'd just like to share a quick story with you. So a few weeks ago, Sarah Hess, who was standing in the back of the room, sent me a text message, and she said, "Hey, would you mind going to Utah with me and picking up my dream car?" And I'm thinking, well, what the heck is this thing, right? So I get this message, I look at it, and it's a 1985 Chevy Blazer with splash striping on it that semi-resembles the striping you would see on disposable cups from the 90s, you know, that teal and purple thing that was kind of all over the place. It sort of burned into your memory. So I thought, yeah, okay, that would be fine. I can do that for you, no worries. A couple of weeks went by. Sarah didn't hear back from the guy in Utah, so we kind of thought, well, crap, things are probably, bust on that front. So she found another vehicle, which was like a 1989 Ford Bronco or something else that is, I couldn't understand, but sure, what the heck, I can go help you pick that up. So we drive down to Salida one afternoon and get out of the vehicle, go to look at this Bronco, and it's a rust bucket, and seats are missing, and a whole bunch of other things are just wrong with it. And we both looked at each other and like, well, we can't have, no way. So we started walking back to my truck, and we get a text message from a guy in Utah. He says, well, I'm available if you can come and pick this thing up. So Sarah and I looked at each other, and we thought, well, we'll look at the watch, and 2:30 in the afternoon, and if we get in the car right now, I guess we can be in Camas, Utah in about, 10:30, 8 hours away. So on we drove. We jumped in the truck, headed right there to Camas, Utah. And like I mentioned, we showed up in Camas at about 10:30 at night. And I'm not sure if you know much about Camas, Utah, other than Neshama, who I hear is on Zoom right now, is probably one of the highlights of Camas from what I can tell. The other... Yes. Which to Neshama, I have to say, I apologize that I didn't bring your participation certificate to you while we were out there, but we sort of lost track of time and didn't have time for that. But we showed up into Camas and found what is seemingly the lifeblood of Camas, Utah, from what we could tell, which was the local 7-Eleven, which we found at Are We Crazy Avenue and This Must Be Insane Boulevard. So we pulled in and waited. Hadn't heard back from, the guy with the vehicle in a little while. And so we're sitting there. And about all that we knew from him coming into town was that he lives down a dirt road, and that's where we can find the vehicle, which, again, crazy and insane. So we sat there and waited for a while and talked with one another and got to know each other a little bit more. And eventually, I look over my shoulder just as this 1985 splash striped, loud as heck, rumbling down the road Blazer pulls into the parking lot. I point at Sarah and I point over there, and she goes, "That's my dream car." I go, "Okay." So we get back in my truck and follow this guy down said dirt road into the back alley of nowhere. We have no idea where we're at, what's going on. It's dark as heck and there's no street lights anywhere. Kind of sounded like the beginning of a slasher horror movie, but I digress. So we get in there and look at the vehicle, and Sarah does the deal and pays the man, and away we drive. And we go back to the intersection of, crazy and insane, and buy some more supplies so we can get on the road and fill this rust bucket thing full of gas so we can get on the road. So we head out of Camas, Utah. A couple hours later, Sarah texts me and we need to pull over so she can sleep. We pull into the parking lot of this hotel, and Sarah jumps into the side of my truck and starts snoring, sleeping. And over her sonorous slumber, I hear this dinging from outside, and I think, what in the world is dinging? And the truck's not on, doors are closed, what's going on? I look over at my right shoulder, and Sarah had accidentally left the driver's side door of the Blazer opened up with the lights still turned on, just sitting there in the parking lot in the middle of nowhere. I got out and shut that for her. So we sat and rested for a little while and got back on the road, and drove back to Colorado, and in our bright minds, and I'm not sure if you know this, but Sarah is originally from New Orleans and I'm from Iowa, and we thought, well, what the heck? We got this brand new vehicle that's 1 million years old, so let's drive it over to the Loveland Pass, because that'll be good on the way back from Camas, Utah. Surprisingly, we made it. We did. Got back into town. Both of us hit the hay for a couple hours because we needed to come back to the Legacy. We're having the Legacy dinner that night, so we came in not bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at all so that we could help out with that. And away we went. A couple of days later, Sarah takes the car across the street to Evans Auto Care to get it checked out. And after a couple of days, I get this text message, and she says, "We bought a lemon." I said, "Okay, well, tell me more." She says, "There's just too much, And I saw Sarah not too long ago, and I said, "Well, I feel really bad. I mean, we, drove, 480 hours away to go buy this vehicle for you and brought it back, and now it's a lemon. And she looked at me and she said, no, it's okay. It was my birthday. You gave me one of the best birthdays that I've had in my life. And I looked at her and I said, what do you mean? And she says, you gave me time. You gave me yourself. You spent time with me, and we opened up with one another and cemented our relationship, and what has really blossomed into a relationship of friendly love. And for us, that is what the legacy of CB is. It gives us the space and the time and the ability to create those relationships with one another through this place. And what the Legacy Fund does is will carry us in that message and those relationships through the next 49 years. And that is why this year we have asked for the appeal, not really for something tangible, but for something that is going to outlast all of us, and to make sure that this can carry on and carry forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin and Sarah. Let's rise for Eleni with some concluding prayers. Page 1207, back in the Maksor. It's up to us to hallow creation, to respond to life with the fullness of our lives. It is up to us to meet the world and embrace the whole even as we wrestle with its parts. It's up to us to repair the world and to bind our lives to truth. Join me. Therefore, we bend the knee and shake off the stiffness that keeps us from the subtle graces of life and the supple gestures of love. With reverence and thanksgiving, we accept our destiny and set for ourselves the task of redemption. Page 1202. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתקן יולה ליוצר בראשית, שנתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם, נטע בתוכנו. Page 1204. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומורים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. כתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד כמו אחד. If you are in mourning, we stand with you, and you can remain standing. If you're recalling the anniversary of a death or a yahrzeit, you can stay standing. You can also be seated if you choose. The Mourner's Kaddish is on page 1215. Tomorrow, God willing, we will offer tomorrow afternoon, a Yizkor service, and there's a sheet in the back if you have someone's name that you want mentioned, somebody who passed away this year, or an immediate family member that you want to mention at Yizkor. Tonight we extend condolences and mourn with the families of those who have died recently. Claire DeRoca, Milton Horowitz, Jonathan Kurland Wise, Leslie Lipstein, Sherry Latto, Angela Fitzgerald, Paul Gould, Joan Seiler, Jim Friedland, Seymour Hanan, Nicole Kasbar, Lisa Lardner, Alan Perlman, Cheryl Lynn Tropin. And the art sites that we're aware of for this week: Martin Berman, Herbert Schneider, Marty Orens, Barbara Lehner, Michael Joseph Huron, Harvey Schneider, Barbara Lockwood, Kalman Judah Bukatman, Irma Smith, Robert Smith, Sophie Buckley, Herman Levine, and Shirley Katz. If you have other names to include, please go ahead and share them aloud. Irene Miller Rosenblum, Jackie Edelstein. Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. Mourner's Kaddish is on page 1216. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma v'yivrach chirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Miborach Leolam Ulomei Almaya. Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitalev V'yitalal Shemei D'Kudsha Brichu Le'ela Le'ela Mikol Birchata V'shirata Tushbichata V'nechemata Da'amiran Be'alma V'imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'imru Amen. Thank you. May the source of wholeness and peace in the natural world grant comfort to you who mourn. And may you have the support and love and to carry on their noble legacies. And let us say, Amen. You may be seated. Invite Elizabeth to come up. And as she's coming up, I just want to can't say enough to thank these fabulous musicians. Angie playing cello, our special guest again. How many years now? 6, 7? 11. Oh, Ad Mea Vesrim, until 120. And of course, Laura and Sherry and Steve and Brian and Alan. We've got the Adanoff trio going tonight.
So in addition, we'd like to thank our sound team, Drake, Alexis, Adara, Curtis, and Lincoln. Thank you so much for making us sound good tonight. Tomorrow, our outdoor morning service begins at 8:30 a.m. and our indoor morning service begins at 10. We have a wide variety of activities afterwards, including a hike, Torah study, and yoga, plus special services for the kids, for healing, and Yizkor. The kids' service is at 4, the healing service is at 5, and Yizkor is at 6. And don't worry, if you come to the building, I will give you a schedule tomorrow, so you don't have to remember all that. Speaking of Yizkor, please put your loved ones' names on the list outside. We also have a box for all chaitz, for the things that you want to do better in the coming year. And we also have several break fasts this year. So please check those out. And if you're coming up from town, please especially consider our Littleton Break the Fast meal. And finally, not finally, I have more, sorry. So grab a bag for the food drive. We back there at the entrance to the social hall, we have these blue bags that you can fill up. It makes the food drive really easy this year. So please grab one of those on your way out. In the coming weeks, we'll be sending out surveys, so watch your email for that. And please consider CVE for special events in the future. Thank you.
Let's bless each other as we go forth, and may say at this point, if you're fasting, may you have an easy fast, or maybe just enough hardness to it that it works, but it isn't painful. So again, blessings with Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May you be protected and kept safe and healthy and lifted up into the light and into a love of peace. Together, may you be granted a new year of blessing and security. Together, may the light of the source of life shine graciously upon you and gracefully through you. May the Holy One, reflected in your face, elevate you and grant us all peace. Let's try it in Hebrew. Yivarechecha Adonai.